And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for October 16th. Today on the worldwide map sees only one active tropical storm, that being Tropical Storm Namtheun on day 289 of the year. So far, 81 storms have formed so far this year on October 16th, 2021. Kicking things off with the Atlantic on day 138 of hurricane season sees nothing active today. No named storm, no invest, no area of interest, nothing. Hopefully this period of quiet lasts for quite some time. It's a similar story over in the Eastern Pacific, on day 154 of hurricane season, as there is nothing active. In this part of the world, it's all quiet here. Over in the Western Pacific, Tropical Storm Namtheun is the only thing active in this part of the world. It is continuing to harmlessly move out to sea, weakening as it does so. Over in the North Indian Ocean, there is also nothing active in this part of the world. There is once again nothing here, no area of interest, no invests, no named storm, no nothing. Jumping into the satellite imagery, starting off with the North Atlantic. Again, there is nothing of interest that is currently visible on satellite over in this part of the world. Yet again, it's a similar story over in the Eastern Pacific, as there is nothing of interest visible on satellite over in this part of the world. Once again, it's all quiet here. Namtheun is the only thing active pretty much worldwide, and here it will continue to harmlessly track northeast out to sea, avoiding any land areas as it will continue its track. And once again, the North Indian also sees nothing active on satellite imagery apart from the usual monsoonal patterns. Here's a closer look at Tropical Storm Namtheun, which is pretty much out in the middle of nowhere with a current intensity of 60 miles an hour and 991 millibars. This system will harmlessly track northeast away from any land areas, giving it no CDPS rating, and it will eventually degenerate into an extratropical system 60 hours from now. The West Pacific remains largely at 29 degrees with a large pocket of 30 degrees. The Bay of Bengal is also registering 29 degrees with a pocket of 30 towards the coasts of Bangladesh and India. Those temperatures extending into the Arabian Sea. However, the further west you go in the Arabian Sea, the colder you will get. The tropical Atlantic has temperatures of 29 degrees, the tropical Eastern Pacific and parts of the Central Pacific roughly 28, however the subtropical Eastern Pacific is still registering low to mid 20s. The Eastern Pacific area all the way from Baja California to Hawaii and by extension to the southwest of Hawaii still remains cooler than average. The La Nina pretty much is in full swing. The Atlantic pretty much is all above average with isolated pockets of below average, and the Western Pacific still remains largely warmer than average. However, there are some areas off the coast of Japan which are registering cooler than average temperatures, and finally the North Indian Ocean still remains above average apart from the Western Central Arabian Sea. On this day takes us back to 2014, where our main feature tonight is Hurricane Gonzalo, which peaked as a Category 4 on this day north of Hispaniola, as well as Tropical Storm Ana in the Central Pacific, which formed yesterday and spent all day today strengthening. There was nothing active over in the Western Pacific today. Don't forget, you can follow Cyclone History on Twitter using the @tag below. Alright, and that brings us over to the Atlantic Storm naming list, where the final name in the naming list is Wanda, followed by the start of the auxiliaries with Adria. Over in the Eastern Pacific, we are waiting on Rick, followed by Sandra. And over in the Central Pacific, for 2 years now, we are still waiting on Hone. Over in the Western Pacific, on list 4, our next names we are looking out for is Malo, followed by Nayato. Apologies if I butchered the pronunciation of those names. Up next in the North Indian Ocean is Jawad, followed by Asani. And jumping over to the Southern Hemisphere, first up in the next up in the Australian region, I should say, is Paddy, followed by Ruby. First up in the Southwest Indian Ocean is Anna, followed by Batsirai. And finally, in the South Pacific, we are waiting on Cody, followed by Dovey. That's all from me for now. We'll see you for another Tropical Weather Bulletin tomorrow night.